If you remember the chapter before we did said and estar, we did some of the irregular verbs, one of which was tener. What does tener mean?
To want, to have, one of them.
To have, right. And we also did querer, so that's a good reminder there. Querer was to want, tener was to have. What was the difference between tener and tener que? Right, so the conjugations were the same. We're going to look at this verb venir, which you have on your vocab, means to come. So I want you to see that it's very similar to what we already know about tener. So we already kind of know how to do it just by looking at it. So we're going to look at tener and venir, how they're similar first, and then we're going to come back. By the way, this is page 344 in your textbook. If you want to follow this along, I believe I put it on the bottom of your document there for you. But it just has the other verbs we're going to do as well. Hacer is to do or make. Poner is to put or place. Traer is to bring. I don't know why I didn't put those meanings on here. And salir is to leave. Always make sure you put to with all your verb meanings. What do you notice looking at all of them side by side? Right. So they're ER and IR verbs, and the yo forms of all of these all end in go. So I call them go verbs or go-go verbs or whatever you want to call them. As long as you remember that the yo forms are irregular. Now, have we also looked at two more verbs in this chapter that are also irregular in the yo form? So if you think about it, it seems like a lot of verbs to memorize boxes for, but you don't need to memorize the whole box. You just need to remember that these are irregular in the yo form. This one has ZCO. This one has se, all for the yo form. And then introducir, we're going to see that it's also ZCO at the end, only for the yo form for these. So all these verbs we're going to cover in this chapter are just irregular in the yo form, except for, of course, venir. There's always going to be one in the bunch that doesn't follow the rules. And so it'll be very similar to tener. It'll be a shoe verb. So let's look at that. Or conjugations of tener. Perfect. So, tengo, tienes, tiene, tenemos, tienen. Not only is it a go verb, ends in go for the yo form, doesn't mean to go. Don't get that confused. We're not talking about the verb ir, the verb to go. That's voy, vas, va, vamos, van. But tener and tener que not only are go verbs, but are also e to ie. That's one of the ones that I call the shoe verb. If that helps you remember it, go for it. If not, just remember that basically the stem changes from E to IE inside the shoe shape, which is basically just to say that the nosotros form doesn't change. Nosotros form is regular conjugation, but the yo form, you've got to remember that's something extra. How would I say I have two brothers and one sister?
Yo tiene dos.
Tengo
Dos hermanos.
dos hermanos y una hermana. Good. Okay. So I just wanted to show you that you already know about tener. Same thing applies to venir. Venir is the verb to come. And so same thing for yo form. It ends in go. You've got to remember that irregular yo form. And then the rest of your conjugations, the nosotros is regular, but inside the shoe shape, you're going to have an E to IE change. So it's called a stem changing verb because something in the stem changes. So if you want to write down a note for yourself that it's a go verb and a shoe, E to IE, all the other ones we're going to do are going to be just go verbs. So just the yo form would be irregular, but this one has the IE change as well, just like tener did. Okay. I wanted to make sure that we review too, if you're using the verb, any verb in the present tense, you can say, do you come to the airport or are you coming to the airport? Both of those can be translated in the present tense. The difference that I want to point out is we don't normally say, you come to the airport? Are you coming to the airport is what we normally say. So we a lot of times use that ing form. In Spanish, you're only going to use the ing form, the present progressive, if you're saying that it's happening right now. In English, we just say, are you coming, like whenever. Not like, are you coming right this second, I'm on the phone with you, like, are you coming, the plane's about to leave. So just make sure that you know that in present tense you can do it either way. Vienes can mean, do you come or are you coming? Doesn't have to be present progressive. That's only if it's happening right this second. And if we do use present progressive, what verb do we always have to use with it? Estar first because of the are. Are you coming with the ing form attached to it? Remember that second one is not a conjugation. It's just the ing form attached to the verb. So you wouldn't have to worry about the two verbs in a row rule. Although at any other point, we would have the two verbs in a row rule that you wouldn't conjugate the second one. All right, then let's look at hacer. Let me go back to this really quick and point something out. Tener, if you remember from one of our vocabs, we had tener hambre, tener sed. We also used it, or to be hungry, to be thirsty. We used it with age. I have however many years. Know that the verb to have can be used in a lot of different phrases. Same thing with the verb hacer, to do or make. If you already have it in your vocab, hacer un viaje, which is to do, or you can say to do a trip, to make a trip, but it sounds better to say to take a trip. If you say hacer la maleta, you can do or make a suitcase, but again, it sounds better to say to pack a suitcase. So just know that the verb tener, the verb hacer, can be used in a lot of different phrases that can mean different things. But the verb hacer is only irregular in the yo form, so it makes life easier that way. So you only have to remember one thing that's irregular about it, and then you should remember your er endings. So the yo form is irregular with that go on there. And then the rest of them, you just take off the er and add your er endings. So that's part of our go verbs. And other verbs like it will be traer, salir.
So it's going to be trago.
Correct. The only extra thing about traer, and we're going to put them in a box here in a minute, is that traer likes to be extra different and have an extra I in there. I don't know where that I comes from. It just is there. It's an irregular verb. Irregular verbs don't follow any rules. They don't make any sense. Okay. So the verb hacer has two meanings, to do or make. The other ones that also are just irregular in the yo form, this one has the extra I there. Traigo for traer, which is your verb to bring. Salir, to leave or depart, would be salgo for the yo form. The rest would be regular conjugations. What's the difference, though, between our er and ir endings in the present tense? We have the box o, I'm sorry, yeah, o, es, e. What's in the nosotros form? Hemos and imos. So careful with salir. It's an ir verb. So if you're using the nosotros form, you're going to use imos. And then poner, pongo for the yo form, and then the rest of them will be regular conjugations. Tener and venir follow basically the same rules. They're go changes for the yo form, and then e to ie shoes. Okay, so instead of shoe shape, it'll change from e to ie. And then, what was the yo form of conocer? Conozco. The yo form of introducir is introduzco. Same ZCO at the end. So these are the remainder of the irregular verbs that we're going to cover. Then after this chapter, we are done. So we will basically go over this again on your next document. So open up the next one you have there. And I just want to make sure that instead of just mentioning it to you this way, that we also have the verbs in boxes as you're used to looking at them. So open up the next document from Edmodo, open it up in Notability, let's look at these verbs.